Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
I'm going to throw a word at you, and I'm going to ask you to see if you can figure it out. It's called JEXIT. Does it remind you of Brexit, with Britain leaving the European Union? Brexit is called because Britain is exiting the European Union. Brexit. Well, we have something now called JEXIT, and that's Jews leaving the Democratic Party in the United States of America. As many of you know, many Jews are vote Democratic because they thought that that's the party that offers the most freedom to people and tolerance, and they're more liberal in their thinking, and they're more progressive and in the positive ways. But now the Democratic Party has gone insanely to the extremist, anarchist, and anti-Semites. This is quite similar, I think, to what went on in the Labour Party in Britain, where Jews used to vote also very more liberal, more, for the downtrodden, for the people who were not so rich and advantageous. The Jews are always trying to bring up mankind and, like the social workers of the world, but in a positive way. And now Jews are starting to wake up that a change has come. A change has come where the Democratic Party cannot just expect their undying loyalty and their automatic votes. Jews are waking up, seeing what has been decaying in that political party and the rot that's going on there. They're smelling that, and they're saying, we need to leave. There's no place for us here anymore. It's out of control. And we have to vote Donald Trump or something else, but we're not going to automatically be giving our votes to the Democratic Party. All right, and we're going to be talking about what's going on after the rioting that's going on in the United States, what it means for the Jews, what it means for people who are not anarchists. We'll be right back.
Always challenging the status quo. Hello, I'm Rod Bryant on Beyond the Matrix here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I want to encourage you to listen each week, every Wednesday at the same time, for an amazing show that will challenge you, inform you, and inspire. News, views, and wisdom for the nations here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Don't forget, Beyond the Matrix every week, Wednesday, here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
All right, we're back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. We're going to be talking about the Jews in America specifically, but Jews all over the world should be listening to this show because in some way you're in a similar situation with what's been going on today around the world after the killing of George Floyd. And we had on the show around 2 weeks ago Barry Shaw, and he was talking to us about the rioting, what was going on, what was behind the rioting and the politics, etc., the agendas. And he's here to give us an update and to talk to us about exactly who or what the organization of Black Lives Matter is, what their manifesto is. Because if we are marching, if people say, oh, I want to march with them because we're against racism, which is a very good thing. It's good to be against racism. But who are you marching with? This is another thing. So our guest, again, is Barry Shaw. He's the International Public Diplomacy Director at the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies. His books include Fighting Hamas, BDS and Anti-Semitism, BDS for Idiots, and 1917, From Palestine to Israel. They're all available on Amazon.com or at Israel's Stematsky bookstores all over the country here. You can visit his website at theviewfromisrael.com. Welcome to the show, Barry Shaw.
Thank you. Thank you, Tamar.
All right. So we have seen some incredible videos of what's going on in the United States with white people who have a guilty conscience thinking that they have white privilege. Maybe there is some white privilege. There's something to that. But I think that even people with white privilege, they believe that everybody should have equal rights. We should all have equal opportunity. And they feel guilty about them. Some of them are even bowing down and kissing the feet, washing the feet of people of color. And we have seen also these autonomous zones that have gone up in Seattle, Washington, in Portland, Oregon. It seems that there's anarchy that is growing and growing. Where would you like to start?
All right, I'll deal with, if you like, with the white guilt and white privilege a bit later on in the show. But in a previous show, I pointed out the correlation between the tactics of the Black Lives Matter and those of insurgency groups in the Middle East and Africa. And actually, Tamar, Kolakavod, you were probably the first broadcasting show to feature this aspect of what is actually going on in America. Because on that show, I illustrated how, for instance, I gave an example of the Muslim Brotherhood took advantage of a peaceful student protest for civil rights in the Arab world. They called it the Arab Spring. And in Tahrir Square, Cairo, it became one of the focal points of the students' protests. They began, as I said, as peaceful demonstrations, as they did in America. But they quickly descended into violence using the police and the initial target of the calculated violence as the Black Lives Matter and Antifa did in America. They were so successful, these were led by the Muslim Brotherhood in exploiting an issue. It brought down the government and they used their power in Egypt. Now, a lot of people I've spoken to in national security and counterterrorism business and those in strategic affairs are not fooled by what's going on unfolding in America. The show of altruism to a cause has been taken over and manipulated by malevolent characters with a devious agenda far removed from making things better for the black communities in America. And quite frankly, as in any revolutionary movement, I really don't care how many die along the way. And I'm sick of the lies being spilled ad nauseum in the American media and by Democratic politicians that violence is not violence if it advances the aim of Black Lives Matter. That violence is aimed at the police is justified. Is this really where we are right today in America? Over 20 people have died by the protesters since they began rioting and hundreds more injured, and they have no regrets. Why not? Because revolutionaries never count the trail of dead and injured that they leave behind them. Black Lives Matter is fostering division, chaos, and destruction designed to bring the West to its knees. And they'll harm the people the movement is purported to project. And I'm going to go into this a little bit later on. So in America, they need to be deeply worried, because any Americans listening to this show, whether you're Democrat or Republican or not, your country is on the edge of an abyss. When I see these rioting protesters, vandals for vandalism's sake, these anti-American, anti-capitalist Marxists and anarchists who believe they have a right to other people's stuff, these people who are destroying the life, the liberty, and the pursuit of happiness of others. And when I see the media and too many Americans say, that's okay, it's in a good cause. If that doesn't make you think more clearly, America, what will? While they burn and loot and destroy, they try to tell us it's Trump's fault. No, it isn't. It's nobody's fault except their own. They are the destroyers of America, not Trump. They are the destroyers of democracy, and they demand, and they really know it. It's basically their ultimate aim. That's the truth. Everything else is Marxist, anarchist lies.
I want to put in here just for a second the hypocrisy as well, because we see reports that they're demanding extortion now in the autonomous zones from businesses. If you want to operate your business, you have to pay us money. There was something else that someone posted that all the whites in the autonomous zones should be giving $10 to a black person because of their white privilege. And I was thinking, if I were a black person, I would be insulted. I would be insulted that someone gives me $10 and that's their reparations for what my ancestors went through. And wait, in addition to that, they're intimidating huge corporations like Wendy's, like Band-Aids, like all these places to give these huge donations to Black Lives Matter because they're afraid of being burned out. And look what happened to Wendy's anyway. They were burned out and right next to a gas station, which was so dangerous. But go ahead.
Well, I want to sort of bring it to where it's heading. And where it's heading is a very dark place. There was a German Jew called Heinrich Heine who wrote, where they burn books, they eventually burn people. He wrote that over 100 years before Hitler's Nazis began burning books, Jewish books. And then they began burning people, Jewish people. What we're seeing today is people destroying. Right? Today we can say where they destroy buildings, they eventually destroy people. This is where it's heading today. This will be the legacy of Black Lives Matter and their Antifa cohorts. Black Lives Matter and Antifa and those colluding with them mean to inflict irreparable harm on America. This is the Obama curse of fundamentally changing America playing out on our TV screens. This is Rahm Emanuel's curse of never let a crisis go to waste playing out in front of our eyes. They set the stage for what is happening. These people have not and will not do anything to improve the lives of African Americans or minorities. They will, when they get into power, redistribute the wealth just like they did in Cuba and Venezuela. But black folks won't see anything of it because in these places, every resort will be used to keep those who will grab power in power. And when the blacks rise up, as they will be arrested and killed in far greater numbers than we see today.
Wow.
I want to say it's strange that this started in Minneapolis because this is the hometown of Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar very recently said about the Minneapolis police, when we dismantle it, we get rid of a cancer. This woman knows about Marxist Islamist insurgency back in Somalia. What people don't know about Ilhan Omar is that the senior members of her family were senior officials working for a Marxist Islamic dictator, Siad Barre, who usurped power in an insurgency coup, just like what's unfolding in America today. She knows how it works. Black Lives Matter and Antifa use the democratic system to ride themselves into power, and then they take over the elected government. This happened in Omar's Somalia, in which her father was the head of education, or more popular called, I guess, the head of propaganda and indoctrination process that described the bloody dictator's rule there as scientific socialism. It was anything but, and it ended up in a civil war, and it hasn't recovered since.
Well, so they want to bring that to America. So you were talking to me before about what was in the Black Lives Matter manifesto. We only have a minute till the break, but what can you tell us?
Well, the manifesto shows a couple of very disturbing things. Black Lives Matter doesn't believe in faith, and it doesn't believe in family. The main fault with the black Americans living in the inner cities has been the breakup of the family unit. And this is what's causing the problem. They have no family background, they have no faith. But Black Lives Matter website, go to the website and click on what we believe. And I quote you, "We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure. which means no father, mother, and kids. This is the thing that's been holding African Americans back in America.
Well, everybody who doesn't have a father has been
not
holding
surprising.
Back.
This manifesto was written by a woman who describes herself as queer and is married to a trans male. But what Black Lives Matter advocates is creating what called extended families and villages that collectively will care for each other. The big problem for African Americans has been broken homes, lack of faith that has led to bad education, no work ethics. And Black Lives Matter, their policy will exacerbate this problem. Black Lives Matter replaces God with themselves. You submit yourselves to them.
Okay.
And remember what the sight we saw a week or so ago in Washington, D.C., when we saw the elderly dying breed of the Democrat
Barry, you got to stop. You
Party.
have to hold it there. We're going to be back after the break, everybody. Feel free to call in. We'll be right back.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and our guest is Barry Shaw. He is the International Public Diplomacy Director at the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies. And Barry, in the last segment, we were talking about what the Black Lives Matter manifesto was, and you were talking about how it was basically to do away with faith and family. Now, before you go on, can you just give us the website? Because our listeners are very intelligent people, and I'm sure they're going to want to look this up for themselves. Where can we get that information of their manifesto?
If you go to blacklivesmatter.com and you'll come on a screen which says what we believe, and you could read there really what they're going to stand for. And it paints it very clearly.
Yeah, I was curious because I went to their website also, and I was thinking, why is it .com and not something like .org? Because if they're like a something that's like an organization and they're supposed to be helping people, usually these places are .orgs and not .coms, which I thought was curious. Okay, but go ahead, finish up because we want to bring on another guest. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Okay, well, as I mentioned, what we saw here is quite frankly they are disrupting the family framework of father, mother, kids for something. It's almost like a kibbutz, but it's really not. And this gets to the heart of it because, as I said, the African Americans have been suffering because of broken homes. What Black Lives Matter is going to keep that problem, but they also replace God. And I was mentioning at the end of the last segment, we saw this plainly on television all over the world, where we saw the elderly members of the Democratic Party in Washington going down on bended knee and bowed head, wearing their what looked to me to be South African talis. That was the moment they lost control of the party. But also Black Lives Matter also in the primary schools in America, where they're turning kids against their parents. It's part of their agenda. They're teaching them white guilt and the fact that their parents practice white privilege. And this obviously is breaking up the family structure in American families, even democratic families, particularly Jewish families, where a lot of the Jews who think themselves progressive are really supporting this cause without really, I don't believe, understanding what it's all about.
Okay.
Progressivism has been lost. They've been taken over by something far more malevolent.
Right. You know, on that note, let's introduce our next guest. We have joining us Michelle Terrace. She's an accomplished executive in both the corporate and nonprofit worlds. Michelle saw a need in the community to educate Jews on the drastic and alarming changes happening within the Democratic Party, not unlike what was going on in the Labour Party in Britain. As co-chair of the Jews for Trump coalition during the 2016 elections, she championed for Israel's rights and rallied on Capitol Hill against anti-Semitism. She's going to have a big job ahead of her now. Today, she's the founder and president of JEXIT, Jews Leaving the Democratic Party. And you can visit their website at jexitusa.org. Welcome to the show, Michelle Terrace.
Thank you so much, Tamar. It's such a pleasure to be with you.
All right, so tell all of our listeners what exactly JEXIT is.
Well, JEXIT, as you're well aware, I'm sure, of the Brexit movement. JEXIT is a movement that believes that American Jews can no longer blindly vote Democrat. It started as a true organic grassroots movement, and now it's become a national voice to combat anti-Semitism and hate speech. But we are committed to an effective government and party whose ideas, policies, and spokespersons serve and respect the Jewish and American citizens, and it's unwavering. So we are trying to educate and persuade our Jewish brothers and sisters to leave the Democrat Party, which has basically abandoned the Jews and Israel. So we stand together with Israel, and our principles are of God and country.
So what
kind
happens?
Kind of the opposite as to what you guys were discussing beforehand.
Right. So what happens when someone says, okay, you know what? I really can't give my vote to the Democratic Party. I see that they've been taken over. That's just gone extremely to anarchy. But I just don't feel right voting for Donald Trump. What then?
Well, we try to discuss we try to deal in facts, not feelings. It's a difficult red pill to swallow. But we feel that a lot of people are, it's difficult for them. We call it TDS, the Trump derangement syndrome, because people are afraid to admit that they are supporting the greatest president for Jews and Israel. But we know, based on the conversations that we have, that they are very disenchanted with their party, and they see that it's moved so far radically to the left that they basically don't really have a choice but to vote for President Trump.
You know, Michelle, I want to tell you that in my own family that is still in the States, I have what's called STS, which is secret Trump supporters. And that's what they have to be, because their friends will kill them. Okay, Barry, feel free to jump in anytime you want.
I think I agree with Michelle. I think right now what you get is the Democratic Jews are really, at this moment, probably still behind the Black Lives Matter, because they think it's a very altruistic cause, for racial equality in the States and everything that. And as I pointed out in your last show and your first segment, it's anything but. So I'm very quickly, so Michelle can come in on this, I want to make two very dire predictions going forward. Right? And I'm putting myself on the nail here, because you'll see if this happens in the coming months. Okay? My first prediction, very quickly, will be that the Black Lives Matter and Antifa will disrupt any Republican rallies, any Trump rallies going forward. There will be violence that you will see, which will remind you of the violence and the riots and the arson that's going now, because they have to close down any opposing voice. But the media will cover it as if the white people supporting the Trump will be the ones that created this violence. This is the anarchy you're going to see played out as you come into the campaign season. And the second dire prediction will be they will come after the Jews. the anti-Semitism of Black Lives Matter, when they allied with Jew haters like Louis Farrakhan's Nation of Islam and Ilhan Omar, they will come after the Jews, and they will come after the Jews before they come after the Christians. First they come for the Saturday people, then they come for the Sunday people.
Yes,
my final sentence, and I'll pass it over to Michelle, is that this is the time when a lot of Democratic Jews who simply don't get it will suddenly get the picture when they come after the Jews.
Michelle?
Isn't it always that way in Jewish history?
Let's let Michelle answer. Go ahead.
We say that, we are the canary in the coal mine, because once they remove us out of the way, they're coming after you. And we realize now that we don't have a systemic racism problem. We have systemic sabotage by the hijacked radical leftist Democrat Party. So we are doing our best. And I find that as conservative Jewish women, we have empowered people, because we are speaking out. We are standing against the anti-Semitism. We are educating, and we are many, many like-minded people that we are giving a voice to. And I feel that this is going to be a very, very critical time for people to feel that they have our movement, which is speaking and standing for them. And I feel that they are going to join us, because it's going to get, like Barry said, very, very dangerous.
What success have you seen so far, Michelle?
We get a ton of messages from people on our social media that cheer us on and tell us that they have the same, like-minded people but they're afraid to, work. They're afraid to even show any support to President Trump. They're afraid to speak out. They're afraid they're going to lose their job. They're afraid they're going to, get hurt. So we see this all the time, and they cheer us on. And we hold every day. We hold the prayer chain where we call it the Spirit of Esther prayer group, and we pray for our president. We pray for our nation. We pray for Israel, and we truly feel that we are a very blessed group of conservative Jewish women, and we have one cantor who's a cantor in our group. And we feel that we are definitely protected by God, and we will continue to do this until we reelect this president, because he is the only thing standing between tyranny and our Constitution.
I'm just wondering, if he is elected president again, it's still only going to be for another 4 years. And then after that, what's going to happen? I'm just wondering. All right, Barry, go ahead. Each of you, one last word for 10 seconds, because we're going to a break. Go ahead.
All right. I'll end my little segment on this point. We saw Black Lives Matter's anti-Semitism in Paris over the weekend, where some of the protesters were shouting "dirty Jews." What's that got to do with George Floyd? I don't know. But also it's happened in America. The Beit El Shul in Beverly Boulevard in Los Angeles, I believe, was trashed by Black Lives Matter graffiti saying F Israel and free Palestine.
Right.
What has that got to do with George Floyd or improving black lives in America? Absolutely nothing.
All right. And Michelle, 10 seconds. You know what? Okay, we'll wait till the next segment because the music's coming on now. When we get back, we're going to be discussing this and also a little bit about Israel. But I want to know the question, what's going to happen even if Trump is reelected 4 years later? It goes by like that. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Bentako, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany's but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
All right, so we are back here at the Tamar, Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we're talking about JEXIT and about what's going on in the United States right now. And Jews all over the world have to keep their antenna up because this is spreading of the rioting that's going on. As our guest mentioned in the last segment, in Paris there were rioting and demonstrations for against racism, and it's crazy, against racism, and then they yell "dirty Jews." I mean, it's like you're in a novel, a science fiction novel of everything upside down. Our guests are Barry Shaw. He's the International Public Diplomacy Director at the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies, and Michelle Terrace. She's the founder and president of JEXIT, which is Jews Leaving the Democratic Party. And both of you, on the last note we had gone off on, even if Donald Trump is reelected, it's only going to be for another 4 years. What's going to happen after that? Who would like to take the stage?
Well, I'll offer this, that the radical left of the Democratic Party have a very good, well-funded game plan. Their work right now is to get more of their radical people to replace some of the old established Democrats when it comes to the election. One of the people I think whose seat is going to be in doubt is probably Elliot Engel in New York, and he's going to be replaced by a member of the Black Lives Matter. So even if Trump wins this election, and I agree with Michelle completely, the Republicans have to win the House, because if you're not, you're going to have a civil war. But whatever happens, you're going to have more Ilhan Omars, more AOCs, more Rashida Tlaibs in the Democratic Party walking the calls of power in Washington, D.C.
You know, I just want to jump in here and say I have a question that what happens if one day you go to sleep at night and then you wake up and the next morning you find your house is in a few city blocks of an autonomous zone? And law and order no longer exists as you know it. And all of a sudden, what's going to happen when they make a Jew say, bow down to me? And a Jew is not allowed to bow down to anybody. What's going to happen then? Michelle?
Well, I'm a huge supporter of our Second Amendment, and I'm thinking about living off the grid very soon. But I wanted to just, in closing, say to you that we've lost our moral compass, and our Judeo-Christian world beliefs and foundation is being assaulted. And that's something that we are working very hard to connect with the millennials. And in this society, we are working very hard because our Judeo-Christian world belief is really based on what our freedom is. And if we lose that, we basically lose everything.
Barry?
Yes, I think also, I'll back it up by one of my predictions. The rioting you're going to see as we head into the election series is going to be caused by the radical left, including Black Lives Matter and Antifa. But at the same time, it's going to be blamed on white supremacists supporting Trump. And it depends if sensible, clear-eyed Democrats, if there are still any around right now, can see what's happening and will walk away. JEXIT if you want for the Jewish ones. Maybe they won't vote Republican, just like the Jews even non-Jews in the Labour Party didn't vote for the Conservatives in Britain, but they didn't vote for Labour, which gave Boris Johnson the victory over there. But if they don't do this, they're going to be too late to the party, because JEXIT will be Jewish Republicans who don't want to live in America anymore finding an alternative, and that alternative will be Israel.
All right, so go ahead, Michelle.
I wanted to say that, it's very difficult to, your liberal Jews are very much, they're secular leftists. So JEXIT has really reached out and worked with our Christian brothers and sisters because they love Israel more than liberal Jews. So we're trying to build that resistance in our own group to have enough people to support Israel, because let's face it, Israel is totally abandoned in this radical leftist party.
Yeah. All right, but I would question that because I would say, Michelle, the liberal Democrats are really no longer representative in the Democratic Party. Just ask Alan Dershowitz for one.
Correct.
But progressivism also has been a short-lived exercise, and people who thought themselves to be progressive have found that their cause has been hijacked by the radical Marxists and anarchists. And they control the party right now. You can see it in every democratic state and every democratic city. Progressivism is a dead cause. It's gone the way of the liberals. So what do these people do? Who do they vote for, if they vote at all? What happens when this radical left take over the party, as it will, as I agree with what Tamar says? If they don't take the presidency in this year, they will take it in 2024. Either way, America is lost.
Michelle?
It's terrible. Yeah, I agree. We are trying to raise awareness in our local legislation, in our communities, and that we have to get people to vote. We've got to get everybody out there to vote. We are working 24/7 on educating and getting people to vote, and turning these counties and cities red. People are leaving the blue states. It's an exodus, but we want to make sure that when they leave, their ideology stays there too. We don't want them to bring their ideology to our red states.
Yeah.
So
I just want to jump in here, Barry, just for a moment, because we're almost running out of time. And I want to say here that, whether it's now, as you said, Barry, or in 4 more years, I don't see a future there for the Jewish people. I really think that it's like trying to fight the Nazi takeover of Europe. You can have the best intentions, you can have a nice organization, but there's just too many anti-Semites or other people who are willing to let the anti-Semites rule because they're worrying about their own behinds and their own families, which is understandable. I don't see a future there for the Jewish people. And I think that the sooner Jews leave and make a mass exodus for Israel, it's not going to be good for the Jews. We have a pandemic. The Jews have always been blamed for pandemics. We have an economy that is hurting. The Jews are always blamed for the economy. And now we've got this anarchy, and that's always bad for the Jews. I need all of you, both of you, just 60 seconds, each one of you, and then we have to say goodbye. Barry or Michelle?
I'll go first, and I'll give Michelle a bit more of my time. Because what I want to mention here, that if Trump, as Michelle quite rightly says, if the Republicans do not win the House and gain a majority in the House, this is going to be a disaster for America. And it will not be just a disaster for America, it's a disaster for the world. Because what we're seeing outside of America, that the shining light on the hill is a burning building.
Michelle?
Yeah, I agree. We are anti-Semitism is never going to stop, but we are this generation's answer to putting a lid on it. I know many people are talking about making Aliyah to Israel, but we still love our country and we love our faith, we love our freedom, and we are going to fight very, very hard to restore it and live here as long as we can. But we know that, thank God, that we have Israel, and thank God for President Trump, because he is the best friend to the Jews and Israel that we've ever had.
Right. And here in Israel, people appreciate Donald Trump very much. However, we also understand that he's the president of the United States and not the president of the Jewish people. And he's going to do what's best for America. And I want to say this also, is that when we saw with these riots, that if the police departments in the cities cannot even protect huge corporations like Wendy's, like Tiffany's, like all of it, Rodeo Drive and Fifth Avenue, people and stores and businesses that pay taxes for protection, and they can't even protect them, and they go up on fire. Kol sheken, as we say in Hebrew, all the more the Jews are not going to be protected. The Jews are not going to. If these places didn't get protected, forget about the Jews calling the police and asking for protection. That's what I want to leave you all with. Again, one more word from both of you. Go ahead.
Okay, can I just put this If democratic Jews want to make Aliyah to Israel, welcome. But please leave your failed politics behind. Don't bring that baggage with you.
Okay. Michelle.
Correct.
One last word.
With you. I agree. I agree with Barry 100%. I agree with Barry 100%. But we are going to take this fight to the streets. We are going to go door to door. We are going to join hands with our Christian brothers and sisters. We are going to fight for Israel. We are going to stand on the principles of God and country. And hopefully, God willing, we will prevail and we will win this election.
Okay.
And we'll at least have 4 more years to continue.
All right, Michelle, but worst case scenario, let's say that it doesn't happen. Then what?
Then Israel's looking really nice.
Okay.
I'm sure that we will all be in Israel.
All right. You know what? That's what the Torah. That's what the Tanakh. That's what the Bible says. In the end of days, the Jews will all be coming back here. Those that survive, by the way, not all Jews will come. Those that survive. All right. Well, I want to thank you both very, very much for coming on the show. It's been a very stimulating conversation that we've had. Michelle Terrace, she's again the president and founder of JEXIT. You can visit their website, and I encourage you to do so. JEXITUSA.org. We will post that link where the show is podcasted as well. You can go to theviewfromisrael.com, or you can look them both up on Facebook. They're both there on Facebook as well. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you. Tamar, we will be in Israel. Our group will be in Israel in next year.
God willing.
So hopefully we will get to meet you.
Shana Haba Yerushalayim.
Be well. Thank you.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.